Stay for me, a little family for me. You know I love you for me. Please stay with me, stay with me. Oh, a little family for me. You know I love you for me. Please stay with me, stay with me. A little family for me. You know I love you for me. Please stay with me, stay with me. Me, for me, you know I love you for me. Please stay with me. Baby girl, kinda not the way I love you. Every day and night I go still the one to you. Let me be your superstar, gonna take you high to the sky. Oh, love for me, for me. You want me more fair low. Shisha kara kara, Kimberly Fiasha, you're my one desire. I cannot cheat on you, want you like a fool, oh my baby boo. They got me intoxicated, you are rated as my number one. I cannot cheat on you, want you like a fool, oh my baby boo. They got me intoxicated, you are rated as my number one. For me, I love you for me, please stay with me. Me, for me, you know I love you for me. Please stay with me. Pretty angel, you are just like a mirror. Your reflections, I say they're everywhere I go. With you, I can rule the world, and therefore, can I do without you for me? I'm your friend, I cut me. I found you fascinating, your love is captivating. Check your ratings. I cannot cheat on you, want you like a fool, oh my baby boo.
A very warm welcome to all our listeners around the world. You're welcome to the Tokunbo Fernandez show, the show that promotes the true life and success stories of African and Caribbean achievers around the world. So if there's a product or initiative you wish to share, feel free to give us a call on 0788 280 9005. That number once again is 0788 280 9005. And also be sure to visit our website at www.tonyfernandez.co.uk, where we continue to promote the true life and success stories of African and Caribbean achievers around the world. And as always, we have some amazing guests lined up on our show this year. It's also Black History Month, February, in many countries around the world, the States, Germany, Netherlands, and so many initiatives happening here in this part of the country and also around the world. So as always, we have amazing guests every single week. And if you're thinking of becoming one of the sponsors of our show, also feel free to give me a call on the same number, which is 0788 280 9005. And today we're staying in the UK. We're moving to London to speak to another amazing guest, beautiful friend. She's a singer, songwriter, a community ambassador, and she's been in the business for over 17 years. The theme of today's show is grief, the power of mindfulness, and also the challenges that mixed race people sometimes face in UK and different parts of the world. So it's lovely to see the Sweetnezz after such a long time. I feel awkward sometimes calling you the Sweetnezz, so I'll stick with Jennifer.
I don't think you're the only one, but thank you for having me. Thank you, Tony. I'm really pleased to be here. You feel free to call me Jen. Most people call me Jen. That's my first name, my nickname. But yeah, the Sweetnezz is my artist name, and it stayed with me since I was like 16. So it's just one of those things. It holds a special place in my heart, and it was where the music journey started for me, trying to get sort of a unique kind of name to make myself stand out in the crowd. I mean, nowadays when you do music, people want you to just, be as your name, but it was like kind of like in the 90s when I was growing up, it was kind of the cool thing to have like a nickname, something that made you stand out. So kind of like that's kind of where it originated from, really.
Well, we've dug straight right into the interview already, and I'm sure our listeners around the world are dying to know when that musical journey began and who were your inspirations.
That's a good question. I mean, I've always sang since from as early as I can remember, from a very young age. I mean, I was always humming some sort of melody around the house. I'm one of those 80s/90s babies, because I was born in 86, so it's mid 80s and also into the 90s. So I grew up with all the big 90s divas like Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, Shaka Khan, SWV, all them R&B soul sisters of that era. So that's kind of like where my influence kind of started. And obviously I was very heavily influenced by popular culture, so Spice Girls and all those really cool pop bands that were around at the time. And I was very shy. I still am quite a shy person. I'm quite a reserved person when it comes to like my private life. And obviously I think it was mainly my dad, my late father, who encouraged me the most. And he could see something in me, and obviously could see I was very passionate about it. So he encouraged me to join the school choir when I was about 12 years old, and then encouraged me again to join the church choir. And as you know, a lot of singers, that's kind of where it all starts, in the church. So yeah, that's kind of where the journey all began for me. And that's kind of where I harnessed my vocal and sort of gave me that foundation into singing. And yeah, it kind of grew from there. I've always had a passion for, sharing my emotions and what I go through in a lyrical way, because I used to write poetry from a very young age. And so when music came into my life and I started singing and being more confident with it, it kind of just only made sense then to start writing songs of my own and started putting melodies to the poems that I had. And yeah, so that's kind of like how the journey unfolded.
And when you speak about poetry, because you're also a songwriter as well, how important is it as a songwriter to write your own songs? And how strong do you feel as well the connection is between songwriting and poetry?
I think there's a very big connection between the two, because a lot of songs you will find start off as poems, and a lot of the time people think that things have to rhyme and stuff like that, but it's not always about that. It's just about what's in your heart. And I feel like, because at the time when I was very young, I was very shy and I used to get bullied a lot. So for me, it was a way of expressing myself and sort of processing what I was going through by writing it down. So I really do think it's really important, and especially songwriting, when you're a singer, it's really important to be able to write your own material, because a long time ago that wasn't the case. Like not a lot of many big singers that are around, that have been around for decades, don't write their own songs. And I'm really happy that now, in the generations that we live in today, a lot of the artists and the younger people are owning that and becoming more experimental and trying to speak their truth through their lyrics, because you can only talk about anything that you've experienced. I find if you're going to sing something, you need to be able to feel it. And a lot of singers, sometimes you find that they're singing about something that they've never experienced or that they don't know about. So there's a disconnect in that emotion. So I always try and find the connect in the emotion, and I always try and sing songs that I understand and I can relate to. And then also when I'm talking about that, I mean covers. When I sing covers, if I sing a cover of another artist, I'm not going to sing a cover of an artist of a song I don't relate to, because it wouldn't resonate with me and it wouldn't make sense. And then with my songs, I always want to make somebody feel something. So I'm going to write something that comes from the heart, that I've experienced, that I know someone else is going to listen to that and understand and be able to relate to it. So yeah, I do think it's really, really important to be able to put your feelings on paper, because that's what singing and poetry is all about.
Yeah. So we're going to come to your songs and your initiatives in a little while.
Okay.
But the theme of today's show is grief, the power of mindfulness, and the challenges that a lot of mixed race people go through in the UK and different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And grief is something which you're familiar with.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So what's your story?
Oh, I mean, it's a bit of an interesting one, because around the time when I remember how old I was now, but it was many years ago, I lost an uncle. And I think a lot of throughout my childhood, I've lost quite a few people. So I've always had a familiarity around grief. But it was one of those things that you sort of keep at a distance because it's not that close to home. So even though you've experienced the loss and you do miss that person and you grieve them, it's nothing like when it happens to someone that is like so close to you. So for me, the first time that it really hit me the most was obviously when I lost my father. And then around the same time that I lost my father, I lost a very, very good friend of mine who I'd been friends with for many, many years, who I also saw as a father figure. And he was my guitarist. We used to gig together. And basically those two people kind of like were passed away in very short periods of time. So I think Keith, his name's Keith Coggins, God rest his soul, passed away in April of the same year. And then my dad passed away, my father, in September of that same year. So it was a lot to take on. It was a big hit. Do you know what I mean? So, and also having my father, a lot of people think, you know, when you lose a parent, if you're younger when you lose them, it might be easier. If you're older when you lose them, it might be easier. Like people think about children that lose their parents when they're young, and they think, you know, that's devastating because you're so long you haven't been able to experience your father as, you know, in your life and all the rest of it, which is true. And I agree with that to some extent. But then at the same time, I think when you've had your parent your whole life and they've always been a very steady, solid figure in your life and always been there for you, someone that you can turn to, someone that you can rely on, especially because my dad was, you know, the main patriarch of the family. And he very much, you know, did everything for us in that sense. It was an extreme loss. So it is something that I have had to come to terms with over the past few years and just learn that, you know, through different practices that I do myself in order to keep my mental state healthy, that he, even though he's passed on into another plane of existence. I'm not a religious person myself. I'm more of a spiritualist, I would say. I was raised as a Catholic, but obviously as years went on and I grew up and I you know, did my own research and, you know, life experiences, it has, for me, been more of a journey into spirituality and finding my own way in that sense. And that kind of helped me as well when I lost him. And I just find that accepting the fact that they have passed on, but they're not gone. He's still with me in some way, and so is Keith. And that kind of keeps me going in that sense.
That's fine, and we're always proud of you. I mean, how were you able, and how are you able to deal with the grief?
It comes and goes, like a lot of people say. It comes in waves. There are days when I feel, you know, terrible and I miss him a lot, especially when it's around certain occasions like Christmas. It can be a little bit difficult, or birthdays and things like that. But I feel like, especially being the eldest in my family, I don't really have time to be sitting around crying and feeling sorry for myself, because it will bring everyone else down. And also I had to be strong for my mum, because obviously she'd lost her life partner, and still to this day struggles a lot with her own, you know, grief and just, you know, going through life. So I feel like I had to be kind of strong for her. So in a sense, maybe I'm still, you know, learning. And I think we are always learning in life. We're always learning. Every day is a new lesson and a blessing. That's what I call them, because it's a blessing and a lesson, because you learn from it and you grow. And I feel like, you know, you just got to take each day as it comes. No day is the same. Every day is different. And yeah, that's the way I deal with it anyway. And I still talk to him. I mean, in the beginning, it seemed weird, but I have a few friends that have helped me get into meditation, for example. And yeah, I find talking to them out loud really does help. So that's one of the things that I think I've learned to do that's helped me to cope and help me to be strong and continue on in this life.
I mean, how important do you feel it is for us to feel the pain, actually feel the pain, and let the tears? I think
it's very important. I think it's very important, because in the beginning you try and bottle it up because it's too much. But then I think as time goes on, it's inevitable. And sometimes if you try to bottle up things too much, eventually they all come crashing down, and you're faced with, you know, this big, enormous, you know, rock of feeling. So I mean, and I did have that in the beginning. I kind of like I didn't think it was real. It didn't feel real. I kept thinking I was going to wake up tomorrow and he was going to be there. Do you know what I mean? So it is one of those things that you have to learn to face. I mean, all emotions are human emotions for a reason. We experience them for a reason. They're part of us for a reason. People never tell you not to laugh when you find something funny. I always find this lesson that I learned. I can't remember who I heard say it. It was one of my good friends, I think. But it's one of those things. People never tell you not to laugh when you find something that's funny. If it's funny, they're like, laugh, laugh, and everyone laughs with you. But when you cry or when you get upset, they're like, don't cry. But I'm like, cry. If you need to cry, let it out. Because bottling it up is worse than letting it go. Letting it go is healing. Letting it go is growth. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So yes, I do believe that you do have to own your emotions and feel what you feel. Otherwise, you'll never grow as a person. And I believe everything in life happens for a reason. So this happened to me at this time in my life because it was supposed to. Everything is written. And I've learned from it in so many ways. And it's made me who I am today. It's made me a stronger person. You know, in the past, when my father was still with us, I remember relationships that I would have that would be quite toxic, and I wouldn't see through certain people's behaviors. But now, the person that I am and the woman that I am today, I don't stand for a lot of things. And I know that he would be proud of that, because he would see that I have changed and I've come a long way. Because remember, years ago, he'd be telling me, Jennifer, I don't think that person's got your best interest at heart. And you say, oh, don't be silly, Dad. I know what I'm doing. But now I hear his voice in my head and I'm like, yeah, I think he would agree that I made the right decision with that situation or that person, so to speak. So yeah, definitely you have to own your emotions and what you go through, even if it means being sad for a few days and locking off social media and not speaking to people, keeping the people that you know are there for you and that really do love you and care about you close by, and just going silent from a bit and meditating and focusing on your feelings and what it means to you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, definitely.
And it's so refreshing to see that you have a strong sense of clarity, and that your father, who is still with us today, also had that foresight to have that clarity on your behalf. And I know when we've spoken in the past, you've also mentioned that mindfulness is something you've also used to go through this period.
Yeah.
What is mindfulness?
I think mindfulness is being aware of what you're feeling and what you're thinking, mainly, and trying to eradicate those negative thoughts. It's like there's a program, this might sound a bit trivial to some people, but the younger generation might be able to relate to it, because I discovered a film the other day on Netflix called Tall Girl. And in it, she battles with negative thoughts in her mind, that little voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. And I think everybody has that. And it's about controlling that and changing the narrative inside your head and telling yourself, yes, I can do it. I'm great. I can do this. And I think a lot of it is to do with how you speak to yourself and how you speak to others. And I think many, many years ago, and in society, it wasn't really the norm, and it hasn't been because of the society that we grew up in, to speak positively about ourselves and to speak positively to ourselves. We're always quick to bring each other down, but we're never quick to build each other up. And I think that needs to change more so, and it is changing, because I see it more even in the younger generation. I saw a video of a lady that posted a video of her son before he went to bed, and she'd said good night to him or something. And she had to post it because it touched her. And it touched me when I watched it. And she basically said, she said good night. She tucked him in, and then she went to close the door. And she said she overheard him saying, God bless my mummy, God bless my daddy, and God bless me too. And I love my this, that, and the other. And I love this person in the family, but I love me too. And she was like, I hope that never leaves you, little one. Because it's true, that ability to love yourself from a young age is just so powerful, because we're always quick to talk negatively about ourselves and quick to praise others. Do you know what I'm trying to say? But that narrative needs to change. You need to speak positively to yourself, because it does change your mindset and it does make wonderful things happen. I mean, a lot of the things that have happened to me in the last few years with my music wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the attitude that I have today, and wouldn't have happened if I didn't sit down and manifest and affirm those goals and those wishes and those desires. And now, I mean, you at the time, you don't think anything's going to come of it, and you don't really see the power of it. But then years later, you start to see different things happening, and you think to yourself, this is the product of that day when I sat down and I wrote those things on a list. And I said to myself in my head, yeah, I'm going to do this, and this is going to happen. I'm going to make this happen. Yeah, so you have to be proactive in those ways. And there's so many tools online today that you can use that can help you to learn, you know, the power of mindfulness. There's a book that I recently read by a gentleman called Vex King. I forget the name of it now. It's in my bookshelf. But if you just look up Vex King, guys, he's got so many really good mindfulness books. And yeah, they just teach you the power of going after what you want, knowing what you want, and controlling that narrative in your head, and just saying to it, yes, I can. Do you know what I mean? And I am good enough, basically.
Beautiful. And would you say we have to be in a conscious state or subconscious state, or both, to embrace the spirit of mindfulness and manifestations?
I think it's a little bit of both. Yes, definitely. It's 50-50, give and take, because consciously you have to be aware of what you want in life and make action towards it. Because if you don't go towards what you want and you don't make plans and you don't actually act on them, then nothing is going to happen. And then obviously the spiritual and the subconscious side of it is sitting down, meditating, freeing your mind of all those negative thoughts and focusing on that goal and visualizing it happening. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I know there are a lot of artists in today's music industry and actors as well that you see on social media today posting videos about, you know, I sat down and I visualized that Grammy, I visualized getting that award, and they got it. So, I mean, if they can do it, and if it can happen for them, then it can happen for you too. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So yeah, I definitely think it is a mixture of the two things. And it is definitely about finding your own unique path, and also a balance that suits yourself. Do you know what I mean? There's never try and do what anybody else is doing, because you're not supposed to be doing what they're doing. You're supposed to be doing what you're doing. That's why you were made the way that you were made. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You're divinely and uniquely made, and all of us are special and perfect in our own ways. And I think once we try and own that and move forward in life with that sentiment in mind, I think there's no way that we can go wrong.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure our viewers are also embracing this spirit of mindfulness and, you know, reaching for the stars as well. We're also talking about today about the challenges that a lot of mixed race people go through in UK and other parts of the world. I know I've traveled to many countries and I can testify
Luckily.
to that. Yeah, luckily. Do you think this is something which is underestimated in the world we live in today, and why?
I do think it is, yeah, because I don't think a lot of people understand it, because they're not mixed race themselves, so they don't get what it's like, if that makes sense. Because being a mixed race person myself, you always kind of feel in the middle, you know, like when you go to an event that's predominantly white populated, you might not feel like you fit in. And then the same when you go, I mean, for myself now, I don't feel like that anymore, because I have learned to just own who I am and be comfortable in my own skin. And if people don't like that, then, you know, then I don't go in those types of arenas or areas. I only go where I know I'm going to be welcomed and that people are going to be loved. People are going to love me and I'm going to love them. But I do think it is something that is overlooked, because at the same time, when you are a mixed race person, people look at you and they just see a black person. They don't see anything else, because obviously I have ethnic features, I have Afro hair, my skin might be light, but that isn't enough for them to see past what's on the outside. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I do feel like it is changing a lot, maybe, but I think that, you know, there's a lot more to be done in terms of it being something that is no longer a big deal. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm one of those people, like I find it really frustrating when I have to fill in application forms and tick boxes about my gender, my sexuality, my ethnicity, my background, because what does it really matter? I'm a human being. The box that we should be ticking is, are you a human being or not? Do you know what I mean? It's like these kinds of things they are part of us and they make us who we are. But the way that society uses it is more in terms of segregation. And I feel like we should be trying to come together as people and not being separated, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, we are all the same. We all have the same organs. We all experience the same things. We all have the same emotions. You know, we all bleed the same blood at the end of the day. So those kinds of things do separate us in a sense, but I feel like we are moving in towards a more of a conscious and an awareness in society that is helping us to be more, you know, consciously aware of other people and accepting, which is great, because, you know, growing up when I was a kid, it wasn't so much the case. I mean, I'm sure when people older than me probably experienced much worse. But yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like is overlooked to a certain extent. I mean, when I remember stories that my mum used to tell me about when I was in Ireland growing up, and obviously in those days, in the 80s, there was, you know, racism was a lot more rife then. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's gone completely now, because obviously that would be an understatement. But, you know, people would look at me and be like, oh, isn't she a lovely little boy? They'd mistake me for a boy. And they would ask her if that was her child because they didn't believe her. Do you know what I mean? So times are changing, but definitely we've still got a long way to go, I think, in terms of, you know, that kind of thing.
And coming back to your music, which is beautiful, because I remember a few years ago when I organized events at the House of Parliament, you actually performed at one of the events there as well.
I did, yes, I did. I think I performed at two.
Oh,
I performed at one with Keith and one on my own, I think, as far as I'm aware.
That's fantastic. And you blew the crowd away. But what kind of themes and subject matters run through your music? I know you've got a lot of love songs, but do you see your music changing today in terms of...
Yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning, the first EP that I ever put out, it was all just dance music, and it was all just, I was just so excited to be making an EP at the age of 17. And I'd written all these songs and they were just sitting in my lyric book, and I just wanted to get them out. So they were all just dance tracks about getting in the club and having a good time and going to the festival with your friends. And so obviously then years later, I was in a relationship for years. And so a lot of that music that I released was about that time when I was with that person and I was all loved up. And I feel like a lot of the time, a lot of my music does relate to relationships that I've been in. And I sort of feel like I use them as diaries, the songs, to sort of maybe document what I went through. And it's nice because when you write that song at the time, you feel that way, and you might be feeling good or you might be feeling bad. And then when it's out there and you listen to it years later, it's refreshing because you know you've grown and you're not that person anymore. And you've learned something from that. And I feel like a lot of my favorite singers that write music and write their own songs and write love songs, for example, Sinead Harnett, I relate to them in some way because I feel like I listen to the lyrics and I can instantly understand where she's coming from or where they're coming from, because I'm like, yeah, I felt that way about a guy once or a girl once. And yeah, those are the most beautiful songs, the ones that really can touch a nerve and that you can relate to and that you can say, yeah, I've had that experience myself. Like Adele, for example, she's one of my favorite singers and her newest album is just ridiculously good. Like, and you know, it's funny as well because I think we singers, we tend to sometimes copy each other without even knowing. Like I've got a song out at the moment that I wrote, and this is the beauty of music as well, because I wrote this song in 2014 and I wrote it in 2012, recorded it in 2014, but never had the guts to release it because I was like judging myself and thinking it wasn't good enough. And that little voice in my head was really loud. And I'd only ever released house music. So I was like, this is an R&B song. People are going to judge me like she's doing R&B. But like, come on, we all know Black women, Black girl magic, we're the queens of R&B. Do you know what I mean? So I shouldn't necessarily have doubted myself at all. And I know this now because, you know, all these years later, 2022 on the 14th, kind of like a bit spooky there. I recorded it in 2014, released it on the 14th. It's kind of like the universe sending me a message, I feel like, but it's out there now. And the response that I've had for it is incredible. And again, like I said earlier, I don't feel that way anymore, but it's kind of like, it's bittersweet because I know I relate to how I felt then and that girl and who I was then and who she was, but I'm not her now. So it's kind of like very therapeutic for me in that sense. But yeah, that song's called To Be Loved. And I released it on the 14th of January. So it's the one I'm promoting at the moment. But yeah, I'd just like to say it's just ironic because one of my favorite singers, Adele, who just released an album around the same time as that single, also has a track on the album called To Be Loved, which is similarly about the same kinds of things, being in love, and, you know, not necessarily knowing where this is going to go and if it's the right thing for you, and kind of feeling a bit trapped. So yeah, it's beautiful. And I really do think that without my music, I don't know where I'd be, if I'm honest.
And you know, the thing is that I'm so confident that the new realization and awakening inside you are going to open new doors and new paths in your life in 2022 and many, many years to come. But for the benefit of all our listeners listening around the world today, what current initiatives or future initiatives are you working on at the moment that you feel people should know about?
I don't know if I'm working on any current initiatives or anything like that in terms of like work in the community. I am at the moment. I have started working as a singing teacher. So if anybody needs a singing teacher, come holler. And I'm offering my services in that regard. I'm just trying to get out there in terms of performing more now that things have kind of got back to normal in the world, if that makes sense. I'm trying to get onto all the festival lineups that I can do. I've recently entered a competition to win a chance to perform at Croydon Pride this year. So if I do win, I think that's going to take place sometime in April. But the competition starts in February. I think the first event is on the 26th, if I'm not wrong. And I've also entered another competition to win best singer or something like that. I'm not sure what the actual prize is. I probably should know that. But yeah, if you come and follow me on Instagram, guys, I'm very active on Instagram. My Instagram account is @Sweetnezz, and it's spelled SWEETZGRAMM. That's Sweetnezz. So if you come follow me and just drop me a message, or if you just want to have a chat, or if you just want to follow me and keep up with what I'm doing and where I'm at and where I'm performing, that's the place to be. I've got a website which is in the bio, my link tree, and that is where you'll be able to find all the links to all my music and all my events and ticket links and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely, I'm just trying to get more out there and just conquer the world with my voice and my music.
And conquering the world will bring you more powers and everything. I'm very sure of that. On a very final note, though, what message do you have for all our listeners listening around the world today?
I think I would like to echo what I heard another singer and rapper say on I think it was the Brits. Was it the Brits that happened the other day? But yeah, basically, I'm not going to say who, because if you watch the Brits, then you should know who I'm talking about. And I want to echo what she said, because this is something that I believe to be so true. And it's one of my mottos: just never give up. If you really want something in life and you want it hard enough and you want it bad enough, you don't give up on it and keep going, striving towards that goal. And one day it will become a reality. Yeah, that's my motto and my advice for all the listeners out there today.
And it's amazing. I'm always proud of you. Keep up the amazing work you're doing at the moment, and we'll stay in touch soon. Lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony. Take care. Bye.
Bye.